So I'm going to make a little tutorial on how to use vertex blending for your games. Vertex blending allows you to blend multiple textures together on a mesh in Unity on a mesh by mesh cases or cases. Geez. This allows you to do something like a brick wall that's the same everywhere, but then you can select a specific brick wall and paint in some stucco, or in this case, we'll be doing some moss on a rock. So this is just a free rock I downloaded off the Unity Asset Store. If we go here to shaded wireframe, you'll see its wireframe here. So what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be painting every single one of these vertices just with a brush. It's nice and easy. But each of these vertices can be assigned an RGB value. So what's it called? You can basically use those values as a mask in between two different textures. So if we wanted to have moss on this rock, let's say, I wouldn't have to paint it in on a custom version of this rock. I could do it in Unity. So let's take a look at how we're going to do that. You're going to need quite a few things before you get started into your project. This does work in built-in or URP, so whichever one you're using is fine. You're going to need a couple things. So we're going to go to Package Manager. And we're going to need, not Pro Builder, we're going to first need shader graph, or shader graph. So if you do not have this installed, make sure you download it, install it. And you're also going to need polybrush. This allows you to paint on your mesh, so you're going to have to install that as well. Once you have both of those going, we're going to have to actually create a brand new shader to use this with. So I'm going to go in here. I already created a temp one just as like a little practice, but we're going to right click on our shaders, go to create. You should have a shader graph section here. If you don't, it means shader graph is not installed correctly. So make sure that's in there and all that. Try restarting your Unity if it's not. You're going to pick whichever pipeline you have, so whether it's built-in or URP, and we're going to do a lit shader. And we're going to call it whatever we want. Vertex blend. Open that up and you'll have a blank graph here. So the first thing we need is just a texture for this here. So we're going to add a 2D texture. We're going to call this our texture base. You can call it whatever you like. And we're going to add our blend in here as well. So texture as you like and all that. So we're going to add our texture and our blend in here. These will be references to our textures. Then from here, you're going to click the little pink dot here, drag it out, and then this will bring out a little create node button there for you. Just type in texture in here again, and you're going to create a sample texture 2D. Make sure you pick this one, not the gather one or the LOD one. Okay, this will basically give us the options for our shader. You can close this down if it's causing too much issues. And I'm going to just copy and paste this over and do the same thing for this one, so we don't have to create a new. We're going to allow ourselves, at least for our blend right now, you could do it for your main one if you needed to, but we're going to be able to, I want to be able to set the tiling of our textures. So I'm going to take our UV texture here, I'm going to drag it out, I'm going to put a tiling and offset node in here. I can minimize this as well. And I want to be able to change the tiling at runtime. So I'm going to go and create a vector 2. Vector 2 will give us 2 floats that we can play with, and we need one for the X and the Y, as you see in here. So we're going to do text or texture, blend, 01, scale. And when you have this selected here, in your node settings, make sure you set the default to 1 and 1 so your texture is actually visible and it's not just a stretched monstrosity. So let's do a little test for now to see if this worked okay. We're going to quickly blend these two together. So I'm going to take one of my RGB values from here and I'm going to use a lerp. A linear interpolate just allows you to blend between two different textures here. And I'm going to create a new variable that's just a float called blend amount. Drag that in here and just put it into the T value of my lerp. And I'm going to take this lerp and drag it all the way into my base color over here. I'm going to hit save, go back to our scene. Now, this is what our texture looks like, or our material looks like right off the bat. It has an albedo and a normal map. Not put a normal map on ours yet, so we'll take a look at what that looks like, okay? So I'm going to create, duplicate my texture here, there. And then in my material, I'm going to, on the down little panel here, I'm going to go to shader graph, and we'll be able to pick our shader from here. So I'm going to do the Vertex blend one. And by default, it's going to look like absolute nothing. And I'm going to assign my texture in there. So I'm going to assign my rock, my base, and into my blend, I'm going to put in moss that I've done. And right now, I've just added a blend amount on here, and this will just allow us to see one or the other texture. And we could use our scale here to set how densely we want our moss scaled on our rock to kind of. So what this is basically doing is you're basically picking a value of 0, which is black, or 1, which is white, over the whole mesh. So we're basically seeing this texture or this texture overall, and that's it. Which is fine. So we're going to basically copy and paste all this again, but we're going to do it for the normal map as well. So I'm going to, I don't need to, well, I guess I can copy and paste all that too. C, Control V, and just move this down here. The same values for now. I'm going to drag this into my normal map. Normal tangent space, Jesus, I didn't see that. Or is that different? And I can't use the same textures, so I'm going to have to create brand new textures over here. Same thing, text, base, norm. So it's underneath there. And another texture. Now I'm going to put both of these in here for my normal map. So instead of texture base, it'll be normal. Instead of regular blend, it'll be my normal. And I'll have to change these to be a normal instead of a default type. So you need how to deal with those. We're going to save that. We're going to go back over here, and we should have 2 new slots here that we could put stuff in. So I'm going to put my rock normal in here, and my normal in there. So there we go. Now we have our blend amount, we have our rock, and we have, our well and good, but not really what we want yet because it's either one or the other, and that's not what we're looking for. I would like to be able to blend these things together. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, instead of using this blend amount, we are going to create a new node by right-clicking, typing in Vertex, and we're going to do Vertex color. Now, I don't want to use all of my Vertex colors for just this one texture. I want to be able to save my stuff as use my other channels for other things. So we're going to split this Vertex color. I'm going to add a split, and this will allow us to choose one of the channels in here. Before we do that, I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm going to use the red channel for this one. I'm going to multiply it by our blend amount. So we'll have a little bit of options here. Okay. Then I'm going to clamp this. Clamping will basically force whatever values I make in here back to from 0 to 1. This will prevent things from getting like past white and past black and breaking our blending there. Yeah, I'm going to take this, I'm going to feed it back into the T of both our normal map and our, so let's hit save, go back here, and our blend amount, oh, I forgot I already blended this one before. I have a little bit of stuff there. So to blend amount, we'll kind of just do the same thing because it's just multiplying it right now. Set it to 1 just to use all of that for now. And what we're going to do is we're going to use polybrush to paint on this thing. So we're going to go to Tools. You should have a polybrush in here. If you don't have it, it did not install correctly, or you may need to restart your editor. We're going to open up our polybrush window, which is this little fella right here. And we're going to go into this triangle here. Okay, this allows us to paint on our mesh. See, when I have this selected and I highlight over my mesh, I'm not pressing any mouse buttons or anything. I get a little brush icon and it's aligning to the normals of the mesh. We are going to say how we would like to paint it. So I'm going to leave these settings as default for now. I would like to use a brush and I would only like to paint on the red channel. So I'm going to leave that there. And I have it set to the white color. And right now it is completely filled in with white just by default. So I'm actually going to change to the black color. That's really the only two colors we need for this one. And now as I paint on this, oh, sorry, by default your strength will be set to 1. I was already messing around with this a little bit. Right? As I paint on this, what I'm actually doing is I'm assigning each of these vertices on my mesh just a value between 0 and 1. And it's using that as basically a texture to say where to blend between my rock and my moss. So I can change the radius of this brush, make it small, back to white, and then that way I can paint on here. Strength if I don't want to 100% paint on things, if I just want like a little bit of moss or I want to start deleting a little bit of my moss there. You'll see here it'll take quite a few clicks, but it's a nice way to get some nice fall off in there. You can also use the fill faces or the flood to just delete all your work or to start from scratch. Face one's actually kind of cool because it'll just let you do bigger quick. But obviously brush is the nice smooth one. So this is all well and good. It's looking kind of cool. It's allowing me to do some fun stuff here. You know, nice little fades, but it doesn't look quite great yet. And the main reason that it doesn't look awesome is it's not really, you know, it's not really paying attention to the details of the rock. It's just kind of, you know, kind of sitting there and just using the Vertex data, which is fine for something soft like moss, but doesn't work well for all different types of situations. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually feed in a height map of our rock to kind of tell the shader where there's little pockets of grooves and insets in my rock. Because if this is plaster or even moss or certain dirt and things like that would collect in the crevices before they get on the tips, or things that might be touched more often that get worn off and stuff like that. And I can manually paint a lot of that stuff in, but it's never going to be as detailed as what a texture could do because I don't have that many vertices on this mesh. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go into Photoshop, and this is one I've already created. I'm going to open up my texture if you don't have a height map already, and I'm going to create one myself. So I'm going to go in here, go to Mode, change it to Grayscale just for fun. I'm going to go to Adjustments, and I'm going to change my levels around. I'm really going to punch these out a little bit. Now, the other thing too is you have to remember white means yes and black means no for the textures. So right now what I'm saying is anywhere there's crevices, I'm telling it not to put moss in there. So it's actually the opposite of what I want. So what you'll have to do a lot of times, and this is a lot of trial and error to get something that you like, is I'm going to invert this texture. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and invert, or Control I. And this will show you where I want my crevices to be and not to be. So anywhere there's crevices, I want there to be textures. And I'm going to save this as a height map. Into Unity, and we're going to have to go back into our shader. And instead of just using our vertex colors here, we are going to take all this stuff here, and we're going to add another texture in here. Text, blend, 01, height. My height, and I'm going to add one of these textures in here again. You can manually or just copy and paste it like I did. And I am going to do a couple things here. Oh, actually, this blend amount will be. First, I'm going to multiply this texture by a value. I'm going to do a float that's called height, I don't know, one, and I'm going to multiply these. This will just give me some more options when I'm making my textures. Paste my multiply again, and now I'm going to multiply my vertex blend. I don't even need this blend amount again, but we'll see. Okay, and then back into the clamp, back into those ones. So we'll hit save. We'll go back over here. It's going to start looking a little crazy. I'm going to put my height texture in here. So rock. Clamp. Maybe this blend is too much. Norm, height. Oh, you know what? Maybe I put in the wrong texture. What did I put in here? Height. Oh, I copied and pasted this and saved it as a normal. Silly me. Good, because you might get settings from things that you don't want. So now we're going to turn up our blend amount. We can turn up our height power here. And we're going to go back into our poly brush. Going to paint in my moss. So now you see that it's actually leaving certain parts behind, even if I have it on 100%, because I am using that texture to say, no, moss can never go in the spots that are completely black. And by default, we have kind of a pretty cool moss paint already, and we can go through and then just start deleting, customizing this one to something that we want. Like, and then on top of that, we have these options still. So I could still say how much to blend overall and how seriously to take that height map. So sometimes we can just look on top of all of that. So we have some very fun options. And the cool thing about this, let me show you, is I can duplicate this rock, go to my poly brush, and it saved all my poly details. But I could go through and paint a different version on here. There's lots of moss on it. Let it. There you go. So now we have three very different rocks that are all the same rock, the same textures, and all I did was customize them inside of Unity. I don't need to make new textures for each of them. They're all sharing resources. You know, I can now squish them together, right, and paint them all up. So even if you did something like this, where I was using, you know, different like this, we can actually talk about scaling in a different class or tutorial. Scale one of these too much, the moss is going to be a very different scale than what the other ones are, but there's actually a way to fix that too. So now to actually select multiples of these, I can paint in between all of these guys together. So that way I can make sure that the moss is there when they're all together, or, you know, no moss. All three rocks together. So really fun way of doing that. Let's take a look at one more example here. I'm going to create a 3D object. I'm going to create a plane. And we're going to make ourselves a brick wall. We have these materials and our textures ready for me here. So I'm going to create. Yeah. Here. I'm going to go to my shader graph, throw in the vertex blend in there. My base one's going to be my bricks. Base norm, there we go. And I'm going to blend it with some plaster. Bring in plaster. Okay, give me a second. So let's just get, you know, whatever simple plaster over here. Go with that. Put in I have a height, I believe. So I thought I got a height for my bricks here. Brick, albedo norm, rough. So now I have that. Let me get my brick height in here. Okay, and we take our poly brush back. So let's get back to our brush. In some bricks. So this is not a very high poly wall. But even, the problem with doing vert blending is you will need to add polygons to even something as simple as a flat wall, because you need that detail there. If you just have the four corners, you won't have a lot of options on how to deal with any. This looks pretty poopy. Our height map's not really cutting it. I could blend in the power, all that. It's kind of not looking great. I don't really like it. So let's take a look at what our height map is doing. Doing the opposite of what I wanted to do. Let's see what other kind of textures they have here. Let's go into photo. Look at our. So it's not really very contrasty. It's not super great. I downloaded this ambient occlusion one over here. Let's take a look at what this looks like. This looks okay too. Not really quite the details that I want. What's this one here? Oh, I think we have a roughness in here as well. Rough, oh, okay, so we have some different options. These are all okay. Let's see what this one looks like backwards. Oh, that's a little better. Let's take a look at that. Maybe I can adjust that a little better with my levels here. Let's, oops, try that. So, oh, that's a little better. So let's go back over here and maybe that's a little better. So you can kind of see the plaster is now starting to fill in between the bricks over that. So maybe we can, even. So why are you beeping at me? But it's still pretty cool. But maybe we're gonna go in here and be up to you to kind of finesse, how you want this to be, how detailed, how crazy, right? There we go. So cool. Looks like our plasters kind of, like the bricks are popping through there a little bit. That's pretty cool. Um, Set to normal? Yeah, they are. I guess they're just not very strong on this one. We can also, so it'll just kind of help you see. And the cool thing is you can actually, so we don't have a smoothness right here, but I could actually have, if I had two different smoothnesses for my textures, I could have a different shine for my bricks and my stucco. That's kind of how we do puddles and things like that, which I can also show you. So yeah, that's kind of the quick little synopsis of vertex blending. Yeah, so what you could do is instead of doing all the colors and things like that, I could just vertex blend my roughness, and we can have the stucco be like mud or like water puddles or something like that in the game. So, and again, this is really sweet because say this was our wall in our game, right? And I had another wall and another wall, right? And like pillars in between. Eventually, you're like, oh yeah, that's cool. It's all the same one, right? But that's the beauty of this. So go to, bring up our polybrush window again. Very different looks and feels to things, right? Same wall, same textures, but lots of different styles without having to create custom versions of anything or anything like that. So, up to you how you handle this. Oh, this is looking so steppy. It's cool. Better the textures you have for your height map and everything, the better this will all look and go. And if you are getting any weird stepping, usually you can fix that through blending things out or doing whatever. So anyways, I hope that helps. You can use this for anything. Could be cartoony, could be for mud puddles, moss, dirt, um, all that. So, and then if you wanted to add another channel on top of this, you can actually do another linear interpolate on top of all these, where then you can paint in, let's say, streaks or something like that, or soot or burnt marks with the green channel. And then maybe the blue channel, you use it to paint in graffiti or something like that. You could have a graffiti mask where you can just tell it to yes graffiti, no graffiti all over the place. Vertex blend different normal maps. What's it called? Really anything you could think of. Snow is really good for this too, all that kind of jazz. So anyways, hope it helps. Let me know if you want me to do anything more complicated. The other things I could do is show you how to specifically play with like smoothness and metal if you need. It's the same principles, but if you want an example, that's cool. I can. I can also show you how to do this with a world space shader, so that way you can, I can take this rock and scale it up, and the moss would stay the same texture density throughout all of them, which we do in Rocket Rumble a little bit, so I can show you how we do that a little. But yeah, anyways, hope it helps. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.